Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange, where we talk about everything that has to do with business, finance, and the economy. I am Femi Ayodele. Today's program is going to be special. As you know that we've started our series on the pre-independence, and today we'll continue with it. You know, Nigeria is due to celebrate its independence anniversary October 1st, which is going to be a special day for all of us. As you join us in the next 3 hours, we hope to inform, to educate you, and we hope to have the best of programming from us as we gather together here to give you the best of production for today. Now, before we move on, let's go to news update, and Blessing is standing by to take us around the whole world. Blessing, good morning. How are you today?
Very well. Good morning, Femi. Yes, good morning. Welcome to the Morning News Update. It's another time to bring you developmental updates all around the globe on the Morning News Update. I am Blessing AG. Now let's get to the stories, but that's going to be until after this break. Stay tuned. The National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, has warned Nigerians about cryptocurrency giveaways on social media, specifically TikTok users. These scams, according to the agency, disguised as cryptocurrency giveaways by notable names and organizations and deceive individuals into making crypto payments and pilfering their cryptocurrency wallets. Scammers also employ deepfake videos of influential figures endorsing the fake giveaways and use videos to guide users to enter promo codes for free Bitcoin on websites. Ultimately, victims are eventually asked to activate their accounts by depositing 0.005 Bitcoins, with scammers pocketing these activation deposits. According to NITDA, Nigerians should be careful in sharing their personal information on untrustworthy websites and exercise caution during social media giveaways, especially those related to cryptocurrency. The Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, has issued a weather forecast predicting heavy rainfall for Thursday, September 28 and Friday, September 29, 2023 in various states across the country, and the possibility of flash floods occurring in some of these states. According to NIMET, moderate to heavy rainfall is anticipated in states such as Katsina, Kano, Jigawa, Bauchi, Gombe, Plateau, Borno, Adamawa, Taraba, Kaduna, Niger, Nasarawa, Kogi, Enugu, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Abia, Anambra, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Ebonyi, Kwara, Benue, and the Federal Capital Territory. However, other regions in the country are expected to experience very light or no rainfall during this period. NIMET also issued a warning about strong winds that could pose a threat to weak structures, trees, and masts. Residents in affected states are advised to disconnect electrical appliances before the onset of rains. Furthermore, the agency cautioned that the expected moderate to heavy rainfall might lead to flash flooding in the affected areas, that strong winds could accompany the rains, particularly in certain states. In response to Nigeria's migration challenges, the Nigerian Immigration Service, NIS, in collaboration with the Global Migration Research Institute, USA, GMRI, and United Nations Economic and Social Council Foundation, UNESCO, has initiated efforts to address the root causes of migration while safeguarding the well-being of Nigerian citizens. This was revealed by the Acting Controller General of Immigration, Carol Adikpoju Wuraola, during a 2-day workshop in Abuja themed Tackling Migration as a Diverse Problem for Sustainable Growth and Social Progress. She noted that despite challenges faced by irregular migrants, the country received an impressive $21.9 billion in remittances from abroad in 2022, which supports the nation's potential to leverage migration as a force for positive change. According to the president of the Global Migration Research Institute, GMRI, and UNESCO Foundation, Dr. Williams Azuma Ijoma, there must be concerted efforts towards comprehensive data collection, robust policy enforcement, and international cooperation to harness the benefits of migration fully. Away from that, Namibia has taken precautionary measures by suspending imports of live poultry, birds, and poultry products from South Africa due to the recent spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza HPAI in the neighboring country. According to a statement released by the country's agriculture ministry, the suspension, effective immediately, will remain in place until further notice. While countries like South Africa has been grappling with a significant outbreak of bird flu, with major poultry producers reporting the loss of approximately 2 million chickens. This development has impacted Namibia, which relies heavily on imports, primarily from South Africa, to meet its monthly consumption of approximately 2,500 tons of chicken. Well, still in Africa, the Kingdom of Eswatini, Africa's last absolute monarchy, is set to hold parliamentary elections with political parties prohibited from participating. Eswatini's constitution emphasizes individual merit as the basis for selecting lawmakers, and candidates cannot have affiliations with political groups. King Mswati III, who holds absolute power, also plays a crucial role in the candidate selection process. Of the 59 lower house parliament members to be elected by over 500,000 registered voters, the country will directly appoint an additional 10 lawmakers, with the parliament having only an advisory role to the monarch. As most candidates are loyal to the king, the election is unlikely to bring significant political changes to the kingdom formerly known as Swaziland. Morocco has secured the hosting rights for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, filling the void left by Guinea, which had relinquished its hosting privilege in the previous year. This win was solidified as Algeria, Zambia, and a joint bid from Benin and Nigeria withdrew from contention shortly before the vote conducted by the Confederation of African Football's Executive Committee in Cairo. This achievement not only underscores Morocco's prominence in African football, but also enhances its prospects for co-hosting the 2030 World Cup alongside Portugal and Spain. The vote, overseen by CAF Executive Committee, depicts the strength and appeal of East African collaboration, with Algeria's initial participation adding intrigue to the selection process. Moving away from Africa, Cyprus, an EU member state, is urging Brussels to provide financial and technical assistance to Lebanon to address the challenges posed by the influx of Syrian refugees and to prevent them from attempting the perilous journey to the island of Cyprus. This was disclosed by Cyprus Interior Minister Konstantinos Ioannou. He added that Cyprus is also offering support by donating speedboats and proposing joint patrols with Lebanon, particularly as recent arrivals by sea indicate a shift in human trafficking routes away from Turkey and toward the Lebanese coast. He also stressed the enormous burden on Lebanon, estimating that there are approximately 2.5 million Syrian refugees in the country, which already faces significant challenges given its population of 5 to 6 million and the absence of EU technical or financial aid. Cyprus has been actively pursuing various initiatives in recent months to combat the surge in irregular migration, which began around 2017. Let's go on a quick break before we turn you to stories from other parts of the globe. Stay tuned. And I'll start in the spot of the news from the United Arab Emirates. Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratization Mori says more than 5.7 million employees have enrolled in the UAE's mandatory job loss insurance scheme. While stressing that the deadline for subscription still remains October 1, the ministry says 5.6 million subscribers belong to the private sector, while the remaining are employed in federal government's department. Individuals failing to do so by then will face a 400 dirham fine. Excluded from the scheme are specific categories such as investors, business owners managing their businesses, domestic workers, temporary employees, minors under 18, and retirees receiving pensions who have joined a new employer. Still in the UAE, the Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange ADX has joined forces with Sharjah Islamic Bank SIB to enhance access to initial public offering IPO subscriptions for investors with the aim to simplify the process of acquiring a national investor number and establish trading account for SIB's clients. While speaking to newsmen, the CEO of ADX, Abdullah Salim Noami, stressed the importance of such partnerships in enhancing the digital investment process and facilitating access to growth opportunities offered by the exchange's diverse product range. Through ADX's eIPO platform, Sharjah customers can now instantly create a NIN and subscribe to UAE initial public offerings online, thereby eliminating paperwork. This collaboration aligns with ADX's strategy to expand its investor base and offerings through digitization and technology. Moving now to Asia, where South Korea is set to host its first large-scale military parade in a decade, featuring a display of military prowess with weapons and equipment parading through Seoul's main commercial district. The parade, scheduled for Armed Forces Day, typically a subdued event in South Korea, will feature nearly 7,000 troops and showcase over 340 pieces of military equipment, including tanks, self-propelled artillery, attack aircraft, and drones. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol adopts a more assertive approach in dealing with North Korea, which has conducted numerous banned weapons tests and attempted provocative actions. The parade will commence at the Cheongnan Air Base, where advanced weaponry such as Yunmun missiles, L-SAM missile interceptors, F-35 jets, and the domestically developed KF-21 fighter will be showcased. Slovakia is gearing up for a closely contested early election on Saturday, with former Prime Minister Robert Fico's SMER SSD party holding a narrow lead over the Liberal Progressive Slovakia PS. Fico's potential return to power raises concerns about Slovakia's stance on Ukraine, as his party could align with Hungary's Viktor Orban, who has been at odds with the EU over Ukraine and the rule of law. The election outcome hinges on the performance of smaller parties, as both SMER, SSD and PS are expected to fall short of a parliamentary majority. The moderate left HLAS party, led by former SMER SSD member Peter Pellegrini, could play a pivotal role in coalition building. And turning now to the U.S., the Biden administration has announced its decision to admit Israel into the United States Visa Waiver Program, VWP, and enable visa-free entry for Israeli citizens starting from November 30. This development, as anticipated by Israel's foreign ministry, marks a diplomatic win for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government, which had been contending with strained relations with Washington over issues like judiciary reforms and its policies towards the Palestinians. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas noted that the decision enhances security, economic cooperation, and people-to-people ties between the United States and Israel. Additionally, this move allows Palestinian Americans residing in the West Bank and the United States to enter Israel visa-free and travel to and from Ben Gurion Airport, streamlining their travel experience. To be eligible for these countries must meet specific requirements related to counterterrorism, law enforcement, immigration enforcement, document security, and border management. Still in the U.S., The country has announced the suspension of certain foreign assistance programs to the government of Gabon in response to the coup that occurred last month. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken stated that this pause would continue while they evaluate the unconstitutional intervention by members of the country's military, as this move aligns with actions taken by regional organizations such as the Economic Community of Central African States and the African Union. Despite the suspension of some programs, the U.S. will continue its operational activities in Gabon, including diplomatic and consular operations supporting U.S. citizens. Gabon experienced a coup on August 30 when army officers seized power, annulling an election shortly after President Ali Bongo was declared the winner, which they deemed not credible. President Bongo had been in power since 2009. Moving now to China, Chinese companies are increasingly opting to avoid or delay direct investments in the United States and Europe due to geopolitical tensions and the protracted permit approval processes. This was revealed by CNGR Advanced Material, one of the world's largest battery material producers. The company's CEO, Thorsten Lars, explained that Morocco offers several advantages, including faster construction times, lower investment risk, and the flexibility to redirect exports if new protectionist policies emerge in the U.S. or Europe. Morocco is emerging as a strategic bridge between Chinese firms and Western markets as the race to develop battery industries intensifies. Its free trade partnership with the U.S. is beneficial for electric vehicle manufacturers aiming to meet sourcing targets required for subsidies under President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. And the story from the U.S. completes the news updates this morning. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing H. We'll return now to Early Exchange. Stay tuned.
Glad to have you join us once again. It's time for news analysis, where we review all the headlines trending today. And as usual, I have the wise men here who are in position to review the news with me. Idauza is here. Idauza, good morning. How are you today?
Femi, good morning.
You look bright as usual.
Oh my God. Good morning, our viewers.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show today.
Blessing, you are here as usual. Great.
Yes.
Glad to have you. It's
Same
like
here.
you got the memo.
Yeah.
A choice of color.
I think that memo, I don't know how you work it, so I need to change
I'll tell
the
the
address where that memo goes to.
Great minds think alike.
Oh
That's
my
the secret.
God.
Just in case you're wondering what Femi is talking about, yesterday Femi wore a color similar to the one I was wearing, and today again he's tried that and succeeded, but tomorrow he will not succeed at doing that.
Let's see what happens tomorrow. All right, let's go to news analysis now. We'll start with this interesting but sad story, which is the National Information Technology Agency has warned Nigerians on cryptocurrency giveaways on social media, specifically on TikTok users. This comes, according to the agency's disguise, as cryptocurrency giveaways by notable names and organizations, and deceive individuals into making crypto payments and amplifying their cryptocurrency wallets. It was scammers, they at work. Well, one will own up to the fact that the social media space is largely unregulated, and perhaps this informed the reason these scams or scammers have taken advantage of this loophole to start, fleecing Nigerians and people who are vulnerable on social media using, a special giveaway on cryptocurrency. We know that some people like to store their values in crypto now because it's more valuable than Naira and the rest. Talk to us.
Well, I think this had been with us for some time now. And I'm not sure that it's likely to end very soon. And this is issues that we will have to deal with for some time. I remember in the early 90s, you have this trend. They used to call it wash, where some people keep one big boss in a room and ask people that they imported something from somewhere. And then they take you into the room and they say they want to buy chemical. And they bring out one paper like this, wash it, and they give you $100 and your head trips. And then they say they are looking for money to buy the chemical to wash the remaining part of the dollar, because in your present they throw away this water they use in washing the first one, and then they ask you to go and get money, and everybody is running head-scatter, taking money where they don't have it. So the scammers have been always there, and this is what really had given us a whole lot of bad name across the globe. And this trend with Nigeria, India, Lebanese, real involved in this kind of scam is not a good thing. Again, speaks to the ascent of value in systems. But I think it's very quite instructive that you are having a federal agency coming to say, beware of scammers. So buyers beware, caveat emptor, that is what they call it. So you have to be very careful that when people are promising so much, it's not just about the crypto. There's also the Ponzi scheme that comes with very high yielding returns that a lot of people are falling victim of and ripping off people. And these are issues that, of course, Nigerians need to be educated, and the media, as we are here, need to really get Nigeria informed. Before you have to look before you leap, as they used to say. You don't just see something as if say, oh, this is interesting, and start to click buttons, because all that the scammers want is to get access to your hard-earned resource. Nobody give anything free. Like they say, there's no free lunch, even in Freetown. So we have to be very careful as people not to fall victim of these very vicious and devious human beings who pretend to be offering assistance, but with the intention to dupe and take away what does not belong to them.
Yeah, and the scheme that some of these scammers have devised is that they use influencers that are adored by the public people who they see on the screen who are into one entertainment business or one entertainment venture or the other. And so they use them as influencers. They use them to endorse these things like this. And people just believe like, oh, if this person could be endorsing this, then it has to be true. But I think people need to look carefully at what they believe, because all the glitters is not good. And sometimes there are deeper things that you can see. And another thing too, I think is also greed, because it's not as if some persons do not suspect, but when you think about all the gains that are being offered, they just want to grab it. And you should think about it. What do they stand to gain from giving you so much? And they make it seem like, oh, it's because maybe they're launching the particular coin, so it's at the initial stage. So those who come in first are the ones to benefit. You should look again before you make investments into such
You know
things.
what really surprised me from what Blessing just spoke to? This idea of influencers. And I think in our generations, we didn't have this kind of thing. Maybe social media has created a new lexicon for some certain people. You see, sometimes people who even call influencers are people who are morally bankrupt. She'll give you an indication that no matter who is getting, you have to look at people, the level of their morality, before you even believe and follow them. There are some certain persons that are going to suggest something to me, and if I see their name, the first thing I'm going to look at, I have to look at their moral principles. Are they genuine people? But you see, you have a generation of people. This is why they are talking, some people say Amalians, because they are smoking Indian hemp. And they say, you are smoking Indian hemp, you become my influencer. How do you influence us in this kind of an environment? This is something that Nigerians really need to speak to our youths, to determine who are really influenced them. Not people who are morally bankrupt. Who you see on the street doing all manner of absurdities, and then suddenly they become influencer and determining the life and fate of other people. But for me, really, as a person, people should look at, if somebody is promising you good, you have to look at the person's background and see how moral the person is. That say this person, we are even seeing pastors even scam. So you have to look at people's value before you actually have to sheepishly follow them. Because if somebody can do or break a law, that person can also dupe. It's just simple arithmetic. You don't need to go to anywhere to look at it. If somebody can break a law, a known law, that person can do any crime. So we should not be looking at who is behind the picture you're seeing. Just understand that some of all these things are not real, no matter what name that is flashed at his back.
You know, in every society, you always have the good, bad,
and the ugly.
They're always there, no matter what you do, no matter the level of awareness or the level of orientation. But according to the story, these influencers, you know, the scammers are taking advantage of these videos. It means these videos are doctored. In fact, maybe some of these influencers are not even aware of this.
Are they doctored? Because if they are doctored, the influencers would have come up to say, I did not endorse that. Yeah. They would have put up a disclaimer.
Yeah, but according to it, it's a fake video, which shows that the purpose intended initially has been changing this purpose. You could record a video, for instance, put it on social media space, on your page, and a scammer could go there and take advantage of it for his own reason. So the story is saying a fake video disguising as if these are coming from this influencer. So it's a make-believe, you know.
Okay,
the
then the influencers should be very vigilant and put up a disclaimer quickly.
Our definition of fake is shifting. I read one social media or one post, and I think it was on Twitter last week. One spokesman said that it was misquoted for 8 years.
That's interesting.
Oh yes, even including things he said online that people can hear. You see, sometimes
it couldn't be corrected for 8 years.
Yeah, you see, this is the real issue. Now people can hear you speaking, and people are putting meaning to things you have said, and then you come around and tell us that for 8 years that people were doctoring what you said. But you see, this is just the environment where we have found ourselves, where people morally bankrupt and you can see all manners of things, and people can deny things without really looking back, because truth is scarce in our streets.
Great. The truth is scarce, but NITDA has taken that challenge now to make it open to Nigeria that they need to be wary.
No, I think for the influencers that if you know that you did not endorse something and it's online and you don't put out a disclaimer, you're as guilty as the person who's scamming, because there is some level of complicity. So you are liable as the scammers are. So this is where influencers need to come out. If you have not endorsed any video or any company, any kind of investment, and one is having your picture, having a video you did, whether doctored or somehow taken out of context, then you should put out a disclaimer. Otherwise, you are as liable as the scammers.
Great. Another alert this time around is not about crypto, it's not about any scam, it's about flood. The Nigerian Meteorology Agency has issued a weather forecast predicting heavy rainfall for Thursday, which is today and tomorrow, in various states across the country, and the possibility of flash floods occurring in some of the states. There are various states, Bauchi, Gombe, and all that now. Now, this alert is coming at this time. Today is Thursday. I was hoping Lagos would be in the list, but I can't find Lagos in the list. But it doesn't mean we're not going to, we are immune. But the truth is a reality we have to live with. The climate change is here. It's the order of the day. But what kind of preparation is needed for us to be able to manage this kind of change that is imminent?
Yeah, but at least we thank the agency for, again, coming out to warn us. And of course, no matter how they want people don't always learn, and they think that leads in. And I think we're too fatalistic people. When you're telling somebody this is going to happen and they say, God forbid. See, sometimes it is this God that also allows rain to fall. Lagos had their fair share. I think it was last week, where the whole place was flooded and people were swimming. So flooding is a problem, and we cannot be tired talking about, even us as a people, to heed this simple warning. But you see, the big challenge is just not to give warnings. Now, if you are warning people that flood is coming, what is the alternative where they have to relocate to? I think that's very important. If we are going to see that there's going to be threat to life, and I think this is what governments should really focus on, especially the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, should begin really to invest in some physical structures where, of course, when we have emergency, we can quickly move people into, pending when it is over. And then, of course, you can evacuate them back again to their homes when these issues are. So that when you are giving a warning and you are seeing that things are going to be imminent and people will be largely affected, we also must be making preparations to see how we can make alternative that will provide succor to would-be victims. And I think this is also very important, because if you consider you're asking them to live where they currently stay, but live to where? That's a big question that will require an answer from the government. And I think this is where, for example, we need a whole lot of synergy between government agencies, so that we are going to have some makeshift all across the places where we are hoping that this thing is going to happen, and take people to highlands where, of course, flood will not be able to disrupt their activities, and they can have their life. And after the rains, then they can go back to their habitats. I think this is important. But again, to also say to Nigerians, let's stop attacking nature. Because when you push it to the wall, it will always fight back.
Yes, and I think that a flood that has been predicted to have very, very diverse effects, because flash floods, and then NIMET also talked about how the strong winds could pose threats to weak structures, and advised that people in affected areas should disconnect electrical appliances before the onset of the rains. I think that as such predictions are coming and such warnings are coming, there should be a proactive measure towards it. Like the date has been stated, 28 and 29, at least that's what we've been able to predict. Why not declare those days as days where people, that's if we already had an evacuation center to move to, because people will go about their daily activities not minding this warning, and then you increase the chances of casualties being affected by this, because people want to fend for their daily needs and say, okay, when the rain starts, I look for somewhere to hide. What if where they take shelter happens to be a weak structure at the time the rain starts? What if in the course of doing their job or course of going about daily activities, electrical appliances have to be on, and these pose threats to life? So being proactive is a key thing, because at this point there's nothing anybody can do than just to hope that, hey, it doesn't really affect me while they go on with whatever they want to do. So these are follow-up measures that should accompany.
Let's move on. We'll go to the Nigerian Immigration Service now, collaborating with Global Migration Research Institute to address the issue of migration challenges that has to do with migration in Nigeria. You have the official migration and you have the illegal migration. The official migration is people japa, what is everybody is the rave of the moment now. So Immigration Service is trying to collaborate with an international agency to address some of these challenges. What do you think, Ndauza?
I think we cannot but continue to migrate. People will continue to move from one place to another in search for livelihood. And I think this has been what has really prompted a lot of people to think and say, where can we find greener pasture? Where can we get things that work in? And especially that, of course, we are in a global world that boundaries are loosened up and we can move from place to place. So these are some of the issues that we have to deal with. But coping migration, I think it may be a very tall order for anybody. We may be able to know and ascertain the reason, but I don't think they are all far from economists, really, except from people who are also moving out for weather purpose, because you also see some people from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, where cold is really terrible, and they're also shifting base to places where they can find, so-called, you have places that are prone to hurricanes, places that are prone to earthquakes and the rest of it. A lot of people also would need to migrate out of those places so that to avoid some eventualities. Now, these are already known facts why people will have to move or relocate. But you see, the real challenge, and because this affects us, Nigerians talk about Jakpa and Jakpa. If you check online, you will also see even among the first 10 countries that are migrating or moving, we are not among them. We are not among them. And the beauty is also the fact that when you also look at the economic impact of migration, I think we're about ninth country who benefits a lot from migration. That is diaspora remittances. So which means even if people are moving out, it doesn't adding value to us as a people. And I think what we really need to do as a people is to see how we can really prepare our people to offer services to other nations. Now, when you look at the history of colonialism, for example, you will see that it was a kind of a social program to move people out of Europe, for example, because there was pressure on the ground, so that revolution will not happen. So you needed to offload them. And then you move them out of Europe and they came to other parts of the world. So the middle class that would have created a problem as a result of unemployment and hunger came to have a kind of a new life in the new territories. So, and we're seeing that even in India happening. We're also seeing it in China, where a whole lot of people have to be moved out. They're not moving it out because, of course, they love to come to a place, but they're actually looking. What they're trying to do is to offload their social conflicts from their terrain. So that because when you have a situation where a lot of people are unemployed and they are having difficulty to eat, they can create trouble for their home government. And so government deliberately see how to see they can, export those social conflicts to other places. And that happens with people who are facing global population or explosion. And I think Nigerians need to be very purposeful in terms of preparing people. I understand that between India and the UAE, there's a kind of an arrangement where, of course, there are a lot, Indian government has created a portal to do a kind of checks on would-be chef, would-be house helper or housekeepers, you know, people who will work in hospitality industries. They have a data bank for them that when it is needed, they just click there and government a kind of collateralize them and help them move from India to the UAE and other Middle Eastern countries. And they are trained and they have the kind of vocational activity to train these people so that they can fit into those roles in those countries. So what you have done, successfully done, you have moved some people out and then you have removed pressure from within the environment. I think those are the issues that, of course, we should be addressing, that there are a whole lot of people who are here. We can train them, create a bank for them. And when we can guarantee their character, their behavior, other people can actually receive them. And then they will be of use other places, any good living and having their livelihoods.
That's great. I was speaking with one government official who said, with what the president is doing now, many Nigerians, we use this word, we jakpada. That means those who left will find their way back to the country.
Well, we hope that happens. Yeah. But in the meantime, I think that what Dawson has said is a very good way to handle things like this. At least it will check illegal migration, which even endangers the lives of those who are moving.
That's great. What a way to wrap up this news analysis. That was our thanks for sharing your thoughts as usual.
All my pleasure.
Great. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, the main discussion for today will start. Stay with us. It's still early exchange, and our focus has been the state of the nation. You know, we started the pre-independence special program, which we started on Monday to look at the state of the nation, to look at what Nigeria has been in the last 63 years, to look at the wins, the losses, and the gains. Today we'll be looking at power sharing and revenue allocation, being joined by Dr. Bamidele Olajide, a lecturer at the Department of Political Science, I beg your pardon, University of Lagos, and a public affairs analyst. Dr. Olajide, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your program.
All right. Now, let's start with your thought or your perspective about the present structure that we have in Nigeria when it comes to power sharing and revenue allocation. What will be your submission?
Well, as we all know that Nigeria went the federal way via the 1954 Little Thing Constitution. And since that time, we have been practicing that system of government. And when you look at it, the history of federalism in Nigeria has been a a checkered one, if I may say, in the sense that it has gone through several phases, military rule, civilian rule, and since 1999, we've been having a system that has been severely bastardized by long years of military rule, such that a lot of what I would call federal anomalies are now being seen as normal. So when we are talking about power sharing and revenue allocation, then we'll be discussing a history of crisis of federalism in Nigeria, because we have a system, a structure in which the federal government is so strong, is so big, so large, in contrast to the states. And when you look at the 1999 Constitution, until very recently, I think some months ago, about 68 functions were allocated to the federal government, and that Constitution gave residues to the state. And you wonder how the states are going to develop. You wonder how the states are going to contribute to national development, because the idea of federalism is that both the central government and the constituent units do have equal and coordinate powers to to manage the affairs that are given by the constitution to them. So you wonder what the states wants to manage when the federal government has, is overbearing, has more than enough things to do. That is my summary of the crisis of federalism in Nigeria since 1954.
All right, let's look at the issue of resource control and resource allocation in the federal system that we have. Currently, we know that there are states in Nigeria where crude oil is gotten from, and there's a derivation principle to that. But there are other minerals found in different states, and there's been an advocacy of states controlling resources that they have. Under the kind of federal system that Nigeria practices, how would that happen, or what should be the approach, given what is already existing and an ideal federal system? Federal system. Federal system. Federal system.
Thank you. What we have is a mockery of federalism, like I told you. And when you hear some people telling us that we should revert back to the 1953 Constitution, I want to suppose that those people know what exactly they are talking about, because that was a constitution that gave the regions the power to manage the resources uh, within their territories. However, we found out that since the 1979 constitution, uh, gave uh, a clause of derivation principle of not more less than 30% to the states. And, our politicians, funny as they are, they just pegged it at 13%. And we have been having issues over the years of jacking this up because, um, for example, when you look at the Niger Delta, Nigeria makes, it's economic mainstay from that region, and that, it's so disheartening that region doesn't earn more than 13% from the large deposit of oil that could transform the lives of men and women, everybody in that region. So you find out that rather than promoting prosperity, our federalism has been promoting peril, has been promoting crisis in the states. Um, so it is just unfortunate the situation that we have found ourselves because the states uh, the states lack as it is now. The states even lack the wherewithal, you know, to make any appreciable gains, to make any appreciable resources from the vast whatever deposit that they have in their, within their territory. And you know, we'll be talking of the diversification, like you mentioned, gold in Osun State, in Zamfara, in uh, you know, across the country, Kogi State, we have tin in Jos, we have coal in Enugu, and we have bitumen in Ondo State. All of these non-oil mineral resources, these are things that we could transform our economy. But I see this hesitancy by successive governments into diversifying uh, into into the economy to absorb these mineral resources, so that states those states can also begin to earn a derivation from them. And it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. Thank you.
All right. In recent times, there's been advocacy for restructuring as far as, power sharing and revenue allocation, are concerned. Now, I would like you to talk to us. What is your own understanding of restructuring? Do you think Nigeria is due for restructuring? And if that is going to happen, if you agree that Nigeria needs restructuring, what pattern and what could be the mechanism for it to work out?
Yeah, thank you very much. Restructuring has been a topic in Nigerian federalism since day one. As a matter of fact, even before Nigeria adopted the federal method in 19, okay, maybe just immediately, so a few years after the adoption of the federal method in 1954, by 1958, the willing constitution, that was set up to consider the possibility and the desirability of creation of states. That commission go away, the commission mismanaged the opportunity to to restructure Nigeria for good. And since that time, we have been having issues on, how to restructure Nigeria. And, you know, we all know that Nigeria started its federalism on a very terrible path in which a region of Nigeria was bigger than the two other regions and later the three other regions put together. And, this, that lopsided uh, arrangement, created the problem that we are having today. So, and we've been having constitutional conferences. We had one in 1977, 78. We had one in 1995. We had one during the Obasanjo administration, and former President Jonathan also organized one. And it is just unfortunate that we couldn't make success of of uh, of restructuring through these mechanisms. Rather, what we have been having is the creation of states. The balkanization of the existing structure uh, to even make them weaker, because the smaller the states, the more states do you have, the stronger the federal government. And I want to assume, I want that some people, perhaps some states, groups are benefiting from this lopsided arrangement, because the north, as of today, is still bigger than the south, both in terms of land space and the number of states. We have 19 states in the north and we have 17 in the south. That lopsidedness has not been addressed. So for me, um, we have a six geopolitical zone arrangement, which I think is perfect for whatever restructuring we want to do. I think the northwest, north central, northeast, southwest, southeast, and south-south arrangement is just a perfect one for now, because when if we can restructure Nigeria along that line, and then the zones or the states or regions, whatever name we choose to call the product, they will be stronger. They have greater clout, you know, to withstand the federal government than what we have now. Only few states can withstand the federal government. Maybe Lagos, and maybe Rivers, and not even Kano, not even Kano, because when we are talking of restructuring, mind you, we are also talking, I mean, invariably about revenue allocation, revenue generation, and the ability of some national governments to generate their revenue. So, that six zonal arrangement that we have now, I think is a good one. If we are serious and we want to do something, we can start from there.
All right. Still in that line of power sharing, and you've talked about how the states should be able to maybe stand side by side the federal government in terms of being independent. Let's look at local government autonomy, because the closest government to the people is government at the grassroots level, which is the local government. But what we've seen over time is that local governments are dependent on state government for funding and even in terms of authority. How do we achieve that, and what will be the process to that? There have been talks about it. Some states have been pushing very hard for it, but we still find that that has not come to be.
Yeah, thank you very much. Uh, well, let me disappoint you. Or okay, let me disappoint Nigerians. Because as a political scientist, I wouldn't be part of that bandwagon that wants this extreme autonomy for local government world over in federations. We know that local governments are instruments in the hands of some national government, I mean states, regions, now for development. So if, for example, if local governments are autonomous of the state, who does the state govern? I mean, let's look at it. Who does the state govern? What we can say is that the states should be matured enough to allow the local governments to function optimally, without, I mean, until interference into what local governments needs and to do. Because, you know, fine, we are a three-tier federalism, I mean, federation. And when you look at the 1999 Constitution, for example, there are a lot of confusion as to the operation of local government. First, the Constitution gives, power for the state to create local government. However, is that we want a written constitution, So, for example, during the Obasanjo administration, Lagos State under the then Governor Bola Tinubu attempted to create local governments, the LCDs that we now have, and that case, went up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court affirmed the powers of states to create local government. However, is that how many states, let's ask ourselves, how many states have since then created local government? This conclusion that we have locked ourselves in, I think we just need to, we need to, we need to calm down. Let me just put it that way. We need to calm down. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that states do not allow local governments to operate. However, theoretically, as a political scientist, local governments are part and parcel of the states. Well, okay, let's compare it to the United States. The 10th Amendment to the American Constitution, which is called Dillon's Rule, placed local governments, squarely in the hands of the states. And what does the Dillon's Rule state? The Dillon's Rule states that any power not given to federal government by the Constitution shall be exercised by the people. And what does it mean by the people in the American constitutional parlance? It means the states, And when you look at other federations, you look at Canada, you look at Germany, you look at Australia. I mean, these are people that we patterned our system of governance after. So, for me, all this noise about local government autonomy are not in good faith. They are just a ploy, in my opinion, to further weaken the states. Because once you've taken the local government out of the hands of the state, then how does the state function? What does the state do? I think we just need to ask ourselves the question. And the problem is that our political elites, the political class, just feel that they can do policy, haphazardly by not, what they do is not to invite people who know about these processes to contribute. A political scientist who knows his onions would tell you that, this extreme local government autonomy that we've been clamoring for in Nigeria would not augur well for states. It is just it drives Nigeria more to unitary states rather than entrenching our federal system.
Now, let's look at the present constitution. A lot of stakeholders feel, the present constitution needs to be reviewed. And some will even argue that their preference for the 1963 constitution. Now, do you think it's necessary for Nigeria to have another constitutional conference or national conference? The last one that was held was that in 2015 when former President Jonathan was in power. Do you think there's need for another one in order to be able to review the constitution, as argued?
Thank you very much. Resource-wise, that in terms of resources expended on constitutional conference, I am not a supporter of any new constitutional conference because we keep wasting resources. Obasanjo did the same thing. That Nikki Toby headed the constitutional conference of 1995. The same thing. The Jonathan conference organized the conference. The same. So we keep wasting money on these things. However, is that like when I started this interview, I did mention that those who clamored for a return to the 1953 constitution knew what they are talking about because that constitution, that constitution gave the states, you know, the 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 the, the that the requisite powers that they need to function effectively as subnational government within the Nigerian federal structure. Uh, I am not oblivious of the fact that federalism or federation is a product of continuous discussion, is a process of continuous negotiation. So it's not that I am not saying, I mean, I am saying that a constitutional conference is not necessary to further debate and argue about the future of federal practice and governance in Nigeria. However, is that I I not know hope. Yes, I not know hope that it is going to bring out anything actionable from us. Because with that Jonathan National Conference, I was thinking, you know, that and like many Nigerians, that perhaps eventually we have a president who has the political will to implement things and make sure that Nigeria federalism, I mean the Nigerian federalism takes the proper shape that it should have. So, you know, from an economic point of view, there is no point. There is no point. And since we have a template back in the in the day 1963, I think we should just revert back to that and with some modifications as to the six geopolitical zone pattern that I mentioned the other time. I think with that, the Nigerian federal system will be fine.
Okay, let's come to the exclusive list. There have been some advocacy that the exclusive list should be devolved. Some items should be moved to the concurrent list. Top on that agenda is security, under which we have the issue of state policing. We also have the issue of mining and even public holidays. Some feel that the government is too generous in that aspect. What's your take?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, we have issues in Nigeria. We have issues. I mentioned that the 1999 Constitution, until very recently, had 68 functions. You know, including functions that are performed by local governments in other federations, like prison. You know, why can't Lagos State, for example, manage its own prison? A state that has the fifth largest economy in Africa, richer than many countries in Africa. You know, it's so funny. It's very funny. So, thank God that the outgone Buhari administration has started that revolution. At least now, according to that amendment, states can now generate electricity. States can now go into rails. Yes, we still need to do more. You know, we need to evolve this power. And the aspect that annoys me as a Nigerian, as an academic, a political scientist, is that area of policing. You know, the idea of federalism, of devolution of power, is for efficiency. Now, we've seen over the last decade and a half that the current system is not working, and it cannot work. It cannot work. Why I say this is that when in other climes of the world, there are campus police, you know, there are even campus police formation on campuses in other federations. Nigeria still want to maintain that, you know, unhealthy unitary federal structure that started in 1958 through the Willis Constitution that I mentioned. So it's not going to work, and that is why we have a proliferation of crises, of conflicts. You know, the crisis, the banditry, even the Boko Haram crisis was a function of the failure of the judiciary police system that we are practicing within a federal structure. Now, let's look at it. I was in a conference in a public lecture uh, in 2011, or yes, in 2011 or 2012. I can't point out now, but that conference was organized by the Obafemi Awolowo Institute for Governance, Good Governance and Public Policy, at that Moson Center in Odikon, Lagos here. And that lecture was delivered by the former governor of Niger State, Babangida Aliyu, who was the governor, that's the leader of governors in Nigeria at that time. Dr. Aaron Fayemi was also there. He was the lead reviewer for that public lecture. And when Babangida Aliyu finished the lecture, Governor Fayemi told him, "At you, look at you. You did your PhD. I can't remember maybe it's spoke now. I know one American university. You did your PhD, and in that school that you went where you did your PhD, they had campus police. Why are you leaving the North to reject the idea of state police?" You know, the silence in that hall was so loud that you would conclude that the sentiments put into this idea, I mean, the antagonism against the police by the North, I mean, it's illogical. Sorry, I'm not trying to insult the sensibility of any group here. However, is that truth be told, is that we are not just doing enough. We are not doing well at all about this thing. So for me, I think the best thing is that we should recognize, of course, we can have federal police because we can't do, I mean, without that as a federation. However, let the states run their police system. Let the states run their police system. And it would be let the local governments run their police system. And the reason is this. For example, in the Yaba, LCD, or let's say local Lagos mainland local government, maybe there are criminals there, and you want to bring somebody from Ikotepene, or you want to bring somebody from Ibodu or Manufashi, who is an inspector in the Nigerian police, to come and track crime in the corners of Bariga. It's just impracticable. It's just impossible. However, is that when you run state police, then you will be, with an idea of run pool, because you will be having people who know about the culture of the place, who understand the environment, who understand the dynamics of crime, across the nation. Then with that, you will gradually see a reduction in the rate of crime across the country. Thank you.
All right, now let's look at the issue of power sharing. You agree with me that since 1999, zoning has been, the practice has been the structure being adopted by most political parties in Nigeria. And the question is, where has this led Nigeria? How do you juxtapose this with the argument for the need to elect leaders based on, merit and the qualification, rather than looking at, their ethnic affiliation or whatever zone they come from?
I think I remember for always that talking about the 1993 presidential election won by the late M.P. Abiola, and said that Nigeria was close to nation B, and that statement, that word, nation B, I was fascinated a lot by it. And what does this mean? Is that we had never been at any point in Nigeria a nation. And with that election, we had a singular opportunity on our hands to become a nation. So it is because we are not a nation, that is why we do a lot of this. I mean, zone in general, yes. We understand that the Constitution has a federal character, a federal character mandate that is to take care of the sensibilities across the country in terms of appointment and co. Fine, made that as it may is that zoning kills merit. You know, it does not allow for meritocracy. Um, you know, governance is about the very best. And sorry, let me take you to political theory a bit. You know, Plato is of the opinion that uh, the philosopher king, that is the best intellectually, the best in terms of knowledge, should man positions of power. Now, if the best is from the north, and because we need to zone, then we zone to the west. You know, you have brought us of the opportunity of being served by the best brains. So zoning kills uh, excellence in governance. It kills excellence in governance. So um, I am not against having people, you know, that's for appointments for every state of the federation to be represented. However, in critical positions, including the president, as the presidential position, including the governorship, we should always go for our best. We should go for our best. I mean, sorry to say it, but you know, why should we by now, see 8 months or so after elections, we are still grappling with the certificate of the president? I mean, it's terrible. Honestly, it's terrible. So for me, if the north, I mean, if the best is from the north, you know, let's go for this. I mean, that is, if it's from the east, of course, let's go for that person. It is because we are not a nation. It is because we have not made a nation out of the very, you know, the many groups that formed the Nigerian state that we are all clamoring for for zoning. And well, you may not also be able to, I mean, blame the people in it because a section of the country has always had it, I mean, had their way when it comes to leadership issues, you know. So when people shout for zoning, well, maybe we can understand them, but it shouldn't be. It's an aberration. It's an aberration. We want to compete with the rest, you know, with our mates, you know, in the world. We want to compete with other countries in the world. And if other countries are putting their best and you are shouting zoning, 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 then where is the development coming from?
All right, we'll continue the conversation with you, Dr. Lajidi, after this break. Stay tuned. Many thanks for staying with us on L Exchange. We're looking at the federalism in Nigeria, the practice, and of course the bottlenecks. Okay, we're still talking with Dr. Bamidele Olajide, who is a lecturer at the Department of Political Science, UNILAG, and he's also a researcher and public affairs analyst. Before we went on that break, he was talking about the zoning system in Nigeria, which brings us now to the federal character and quota system. So, Dr. Olajide, looking at the federal character and quota system, which was established to promote inclusion, representation, and ensure a balance in the polity, in your assessment, does it seem like that objective has been achieved?
No. The objective has long failed. Because, like I said when I was talking about zoning, is that federal character, very nice, is to, inclusion, like you mentioned, to make federal governance, to make everyday life representative in governance in Nigeria. Very beautiful, very lovely. Other federations also have elements of inclusion like that, like affirmative action in the United States. However, is that when you look at this, we have abused it, so much in Nigeria that we just find out that this federation, this federal federation thing in Nigeria is not working because when, for example, let's look at unity schools. Let's look at unity schools. For somebody from Zamfara can get a cutoff of 4 over whatever the exam is, and somebody from Anambra, Ondo, Edo, and Delta talking of 198 cutoff. And at the end of the day, when these two people, so the person from Zamfara and the person from Anambra, for example, they join the civil service, and eventually the person from Zamfara becomes the director of the person who scored 198. Where's the logic in this thing? Where's the logic? So for me, quota system is excellent, is a good one. However, is that we have bastardized it in Nigeria. We have bastardized it because the outcome, the product of that process, has been made lopsided to favor a group than the others. So, if you tell me, I think this is one of the reasons why secessionist pressures and agitations are cropping up every day, because the people who are less favored by the quota system in the country, they feel, like they're not Nigerian. They feel that Nigeria is less meant for them than the others. So we need to manage the product of that process, so that at the end of the day, merit still takes preeminence. If merit does not take preeminence, then there will be crisis. There will be crisis. And when you are looking at the quota system and the criteria for getting the quota system, you find out that it's too lopsided. So even if we want to do quota system, the criteria should, some balance. We know that that's the example I cited the other time on the unity. That's a common entrance to unity schools. We know that the north is, many states of the north have it so bad when it comes to education compared to the south. However, is that uh, the sensibilities of the south can also be insulted when the criteria uh, is not balanced. So what we need to do is to ensure an aggressive educational campaign in the north so that it can show up that deficit and compare favorably with the south. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Olajide, if I hear you correctly, you seem not to be comfortable with the present coastal system in Nigeria. But I put this question to you. How do you address the need of people who, most importantly, those who are in the northern region due to insecurity, the peculiarity of the environment? If you're advocating that the issue of quota system should be dropped, how will you address their own needs, the peculiarity of their needs, and then how will you create balance in the system? I'm happy you're in the tertiary institution, so you can shed more light on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am not against quota system. I am not. What I am against is that the criteria for determining quota should not be, overly in favor of the north, of some people. Don't let me use that name, of some people. We know that there are issues here and there now, banditry in the north, Boko Haram, which has created a lot of humanitarian crisis, and people, need inclusion. I am not anti-inclusion. I am not anti-inclusion. What I'm saying is that if the total, the example I cited, the unity schools, if the total mark is 100, 4 cannot be a logical basis for quota for some states. No, no, that is too debasing. And it's not good for the north itself. I mean, thank God, the former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai mentioned it some time ago, before, I think, when he was in office, that this undue debasing of criteria for the north is not good for that system. I hope you have met northerners northerners who are educated. You will fall in love with their intellect. You will fall in love. I mean, some of the best results, even in the south here, are by northerners. In Ibadan, there's usage, there's the College of Medicine in Ibadan. In northerners, and one of the best results ever in that College of Medicine. You can check it out. You can check it out. So, what I'm saying is that the quota system does not, how will I put it? It doesn't allow for people to take responsibility in the north. Sorry if I am being too hard, but that is the truth. If you are making 5, the quota for somebody from Kebbi, the governors don't simply sit down, doing nothing, because they know that their children will get admission into universities through the educationally led developed system, developed system, state system that we use for tertiary education in Nigeria. It's bad. It's bad. So it doesn't help the north. It's counterproductive when you look at it. So what I'm saying is that rather than debasing the outside debasing that we have done, that we are doing, is that let's jack it up a bit. Let's jack it up and encourage northern leaders, to improve education, to drive enrollment in schools, to improve the quality of teaching, to ensure that students are learning. I think that way, the quota system in the educational system can be sensible and be less offensive. That is my opinion on that.
Okay, you've talked specifically about the implementation of quota system in the educational sector. Let's look at recruitment, particularly in the public service. How does this impact performance?
No, that is even worse. Yeah, that is even worse. Recruitment in the federal public service, you know, somebody was telling me yesterday, just yesterday, a friend who works with NEPO, that's the Nigerian Examination Council, who scored 75, and by all standard in the Nigerian educational system, 75 is an A. Now they told my friend that despite that, our good performance, she would not be promoted because they needed to use quota system. That our state, you know, uh, the quota for our state had been exhausted. However, people who scored 50, who scored 60, 62 were promoted far and above the person. Now, where's the justice? How do you motivate such a person to give his best? How? No, just tell me how. So the quota system thing is anti meritocracy. Civil service, public service should uh, should let's take excessive politicking out of this thing so that we can get the best. People who can do the job. Huh? Thank you.
All right, away from the civil service now, let's go to the political terrain. Let's look at the political appointments, in recent times. The most recent is that of President Tinubu, where selections were made. Do you think the spirit of federal character has been imbibed? And then what is the way forward? Should we continue with this? And what will be your recommendation on this issue of political appointments, looking at the spirit and the letters of federal character?
Yeah, thank you very much. Recently I was asking myself, is President Tinubu not a bit too tilted towards the Southwest in his appointments? Well, if like I said it, if we were a nation, which we are not, if we were a nation, there wouldn't be any issue. However, is that uh, because we are not a nation, just a kaleidoscope of many groups, we need to ensure that everybody is represented. I see some appointments of recent, the expiration of tenure of somebody from the north, and you appoint somebody from the southwest. This southwest. Well, I'm from the southwest, but I don't think it will augur well for Nigeria if we go that road. That was one of the most cutting criticisms against the Buhari administration of favoring the north over the south. And I want to believe that henceforth, going forward, we shouldn't go that route. There are qualified people, brilliant, intelligent, resourceful Nigerians, all over in all the states. So, why we want to get the best? And, the quota system in appointment does not mean that there are no intelligent people even in other places. So, I would just advise governments, both at the state and federal, even local government, to ensure that there is inclusion, to ensure that all the parts of the country are adequately and balanced, balancedly, if I may use that word, represented, because it raises serious questions if we begin to be lopsided in appointment in favor of a zone or region than the others. It's not fine. It defeats the whole agenda of one Nigeria. Where is the oneness? Where is the oneness? When just one region has a lopsided number of appointments uh, compared to others. So I think we should just watch it. There are intelligent people who are very resourceful, and I gave the example of brilliant, intelligent people that you can give tasks to, and you can go to sleep because they will deliver. And you look at southeast, you look at the south, you look at north central, look at even northeast. Nowhere Nigerians are very intelligent people. So we should ensure that we pool our teams, on a balanced scale. And
Okay, in trying to put things on a balanced scale, you talked about uh, people having appointments from a certain part of the country. But when things like that have happened, or we've seen situations like that, the counter argument has been that it should be based on performance. Are they performing? Those persons who have been appointed, selected from a particular part of the country, the Nigerians should focus on their performance rather than where they're from. But we seem to have a contrary view when it comes to the educational sector. How do we ensure a balance in that area? And also, there's an advocacy for an amendment of the Constitution to include gender and age diversity in the definition of federal character. Do you agree with that?
yes, yes, gender. I'm a gender advocate, and Nigerian women are some of the best in the world. Yes, Nigerian women are very intelligent, very resourceful, well educated. So for me, I think gender consideration is very important going forward. Going forward, uh, yes, we live within a patriarchal system. However, is that we can begin to undo this male dominance in governance, in appointment, even in elections. We have good women who will do this system a lot of good if we give them the chance to offer what they can. And the youth, yes, it's so encouraging that President Tinubu is having a lot of youth, and I am happy that many of them have already started living up to their reputation of being very resourceful and efficient. I talk of the Minister for Communication. He's been, yes, I've been following him, and he's been very well. The Minister of Interior doing excellently well. Uh, Women Better do doing well. The Minister of, so what we are saying, even the appointments, special advisor, special assistant, you find out that there are a lot of youth. So what we can do is that governors, because the majority of the crises in Nigeria are in the states. So let the governors replicate what the president has done, in terms of the number of women, in terms of the number of youths. Then I think we will be fine. We will be fine because the world is inclusion driven now. So, we cannot be claiming to want to develop, just mouthing the wish for development without, being inclusion minded. We must be inclusion minded, carry everybody along. A fair appointment skill, uh, that in terms of spread, in terms of gender, also in terms of age, the youth. And if I may add, female youth, yes, not just male youth now, female youth. There are a lot of resourceful female youths in Nigeria, and I think we need to look at that. The president, the governors, the ministers, let's encourage these citizens. Let's encourage them.
All right, talking about constitutional amendment now, I would like us to look at solutions now. And I like the fact that you have background in political science, and I would love to put you on spot. So if you had to make recommendations for the federal government on the need to amend the federal character to letters, what would be your recommendations? Or what would be your recommendations in terms of the amendment for the federal character?
Between you and I, if the present federal character arrangement on paper is a beautiful arrangement. That is the truth. All we need to do, is to have the political will to implement them and to let us and such that the leaders, should come out of their ethnic shells and know that Nigeria is their constituency, or the president. Nigeria is the constituency of the president. Therefore, is the president of Igbo, is the president of Hausa, is the president. Therefore, we should implement this thing, this policy, to let us. So if for me, I would just say that our leaders would develop the necessary political will, to do the needful. What we have on ground, and that is for many of our policies. Very brilliant when you look at them on paper, very brilliant, very commendable. I'm sure even the West, many countries in the West, they will envy us for many of the policies that were crafted in Nigeria because they are brilliant, the agenda they are pursuing, the conception of the ideas are very brilliant, very intelligent. However, we have problems at the implementation. So if I am to say, is that I have nothing really to offer, to add than that our leaders should implement this federal character policy very well. It's an excellent creative agenda for maintaining Nigeria as a stage, so that all of us, including, all of us, the North, the South, the East, the West, can develop together as one beautiful united nation.
All right, so what is the role of the Federal Character Commission in ensuring compliance and monitoring the implementation of the Federal Character Principle?
Well, unfortunately, that is where my problem lies, because that commission is, I wonder what they are doing, honestly. I wonder what they are doing, and that commission needs to be independent. So that is what I'm proposing, some form of independence for the Federal Character Commission, so that, they can take political leaders to task. Otherwise, if that commission is not independent, I don't see anything it can do, because the nature of politics in Nigeria is zero sum, and within that zero sum, for example, when Tinubu won the presidency, President Tinubu won the presidential election, I'm sure many people will have, oh, it's the time of the Southwest. However, should it be the time of the Southwest? Why is it not the time of the man from Kaduna? Why is it not the time for the man from Apabu Cross River? Why is it not the time of somebody from Baruten in Kwara? Why is it not the time of somebody from Azar in Bauchi? You know, so we need to take the national character, that's the Federal Character Commission, away from the will I say gulag of the political, that's the political class, so that it can be independent and does its work to ensure that appointments are, fair, even that criteria for quota system are not unnecessarily lopsided, you know, like I mentioned the other time. I think with this, that commission will function very well, and everyone will be happy in Nigeria for it.
All right. My question to you is, how do we ensure equity, transparency, and balance when it comes to ethnic representation in public service or when it comes to political appointments in Nigeria? How do we ensure there's equity, there's balance, given the number of ethnic groups in Nigeria? How do we strike a balance?
Well, I'm a political scientist. Striking a balance might not be, 100% possible. However, we can, do it in such a way that the misgivings are reduced to the barest minimum. Because there's no way, truth be told, that appointments can be made and everybody will just smile and, celebrate that they got something from it. There will be misgivings. However, like I mentioned, the whole thing still lies in the Federal Character Commission liaising with the political leadership of the country, and so that appointments can be fair and even, like I said, because if appointments are not fair and even, that's a recipe for crisis. Is a recipe for secession. You understand? It's a recipe for secession. Because, I know that there's a group in Nigeria that we tagged parade. Yes, that we have tagged parade. Appointments, you find out this person, these people, you look at it, the north, what is the problem? You look at it, the southwest, where is the southeast? Have they offended God? So, we cannot be chasing these people out of Nigeria and still not wanting them to leave. So, what I'm saying in essence is that the effectiveness of the Federal Character Commission is very important for the tranquility of Nigeria, for the corporate existence of Nigeria as it is. It's very important for the reduction in the spirit of secessionist agitation. So what we need to do is to empower the Federal Character Commission as an institution, so that to empower it, so that it can function without interference, so that it can call to attention where errors have been made in terms of appointment.
Agitation, would there be a need for a reorientation regarding the federal character principle? Because areas where they've been used to having slots given to them, whether or not they perform or whether or not they meet the standard requirements, won't there be some form of agitation when that begins to change, because we want to ensure there is a balance between meritocracy and the federal character principle?
Yes, there should be. I agree with you. There should be. And, our leaders, the appointing powers should ensure that it's beyond the representation when it comes to governance. It's also about performance. It's about results. So if I am voted in as the president of Nigeria, and so it is my responsibility to ensure that I, look at the that's every look and crannies of Nigeria and get the best people from, each part of Nigeria for a representative government, and to ensure that everybody performs, everybody, have results. So you cannot, on the basis of what's it called, of quota system of inclusion, appoint people who will not be useful to the system. I think that we should do away with that. We should do away with that. Um, I think it's just a function of the appointing powers to do the due diligence, you know, less politicking, you know, due diligence, more active search for people who can serve, people who have the ideas, people who have uh, the knowledge to get things done, who, people who have the experience, the background to get things done. I think with this, uh, uh, we'll be fine in Nigeria.
Now let's focus on this practice of having nominees from 36 states of the country for ministerial slots and all that. In the name of federal character, you have to ensure that representatives from the 36 states are in the cabinet or in the federal, when it comes to federal level. How do we sustain this with the economic reality and the issue of financing, which has been a challenge in recent time? Is this sustainable? What should be the practice henceforth?
Well, it is impossible to, for a leader not to obey the constitution as far as the appointment of a minister from each of the 36 states of Nigeria is concerned. However, my problem is that our presidents, not just the current one, when you look at it, they've always appointed more than 36. And given the profligacy and the bloated nature of governance, of service in Nigeria, you find that that goes a lot of resources uh, from the country. What we can do is to ensure, we need some form of reorientation. Even when we have 36 ministers, you know, how do people elected or appointed into government, you know, I mean, operate uh, a financially lean system of government? I think that is what should occupy our mind, and that is what we should be advocating. Advocating, so that because this is at the level of reorientation now, we need to reorientate ourselves. That look, going into government is not a jamboree, because that is what we've been doing over the years, over the ages. We've been going into government as a jamboree, is a national thing. No, as a matter of fact, we've eaten, people have eaten Nigeria to the point, to bone, to marrows. So what we should have now is that why we must obey the constitution by appointing a minister from at least, one minister from each of the 36 states. No president should do beyond that. Appoint the 36 ministers, give them portfolios, merge the ministries if need be. If need be, ensure that your appointees are the best from where they are coming from. With that, we can be assured of results. However, is that if the current mentality of governance as jamboree continues, even if we have 2 ministers in all of Nigeria, it will not yield us results. Yeah, it will not yield us results. So that is my, it will yield results because that profligate mentality is always there. Is always there. So we need to, does it mean that they don't have ministers in other countries? And their ministers, I mean, secretaries of defense of this in the United States, are they profligate? Fine, we know that the American Constitution does not mandate a 50-member cabinet like it mandates a 36-member cabinet here. However, is that they are running an efficient system over there. So what I'm saying here is that we should, as a matter of all seriousness, ensure that we operate a lean government, both in terms of number and in terms of resource usage. I think with that, it will be fine as a country.
Very much, Dr. Bamidele Olajide, lecturer, Department of Political Science in ILAG. Thank you for talking with us today, looking at federalism in Nigeria. We appreciate your time with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Do have a nice day.
Okay, all right, let's watch a report on federalism in Nigeria. We'll be back to talk some more. Stay tuned.
In the vast and diverse landscape of Nigeria, three robust pillars of governance emerge: constitutionalism, federal character, and the quota system. These principles, enshrined in the 1999 Constitution, serve as the guiding compass for elected officials and institutions, ensuring that they abide by established norms and promote inclusivity. These are not mere principles, but the chief architects shaping Nigeria's destiny. Journeying back in time to Nigeria's early years as an independent nation, here constitutionalism embarked on crafting the governance blueprint. Federal character, another key booster, entered the stage to redress historical disparity, while the quota system took a solemn oath to rectify past injustice. But why do these guidance exist? Nigeria aspires to do justice, ensure inclusivity, and rectification of historical wrongs. Constitutionalism maintains the check and balances, and federal character embraces every identity, while quota system empowers the disadvantaged. Yet, this journey is not all smooth sailing. Hence, balancing this guidance is imperative. Nigeria must provide an equitable seat at the table while recognizing merit, as it is a tightrope walk that holds the key to Nigeria's future. In the country's movement towards national development, constitutionalism, federal character, and the quota system take center stage. They aren't just principles, they are the pulse and heart of the nation. As Nigeria strides forward and its story continues to unfold, with each chapter ushering in fresh challenges and victories, discovering innovative ways to harmonize this trial will unlock the door to more prosperity. Grace Komolafe, Souk News.
On social media, many Nigerian young companies were celebrating, wow, we raised Series C, we raised Series D. And anytime they raise these monies, everybody hailed them. But what was behind it? What is behind every raise is that the entrepreneur founder is diluted significantly. We had a very interesting session, and in one of the sessions there was a role play about a case study on CWG PLC, which is a company that I founded. And the case was written by Columbia Business School to discuss a point about venturing, about entrepreneurship, and about funding for the enterprise. And the case ended on the question, should Austin Okere take the venture capital investment or should he reject it? Just a little bit of background. So this is a company, CWG, in 2005 that was doing very well. It was riding on the back of the Y2K that just happened at the turn of the century, was riding on the back of the telecom boom that happened immediately after the civilian government of OBJ and GSM was launched, was riding on the back of the bank consolidation in 2005 that was done by Governor Soludo. And in each of these booms, CWG had positioned and taken good advantage. So this is not a company that was in dire need of cash or was desperate in 2005. But we had a plan to list our shares on the stock market, and we thought that the best way to do it was to first do either a private placement or, better still, to do a venture capital fundraise so that they will bring discipline into our operations, governance, strengthen our governance, and of course, bring more technical knowledge. And if people saw that this company was invested in you, probably it will make the listing on the stock exchange more attractive. The issue here is at what price? And I remember that I've discussed something similar on this on social media, where many Nigerian young companies were celebrating, wow, we raised Series C, we raised Series D. And anytime they raised these monies, everybody hailed them. But what was behind it? What is behind every raise is that the entrepreneur founder is diluted significantly. So if I use CWG as a case study, the case that was written by Columbia was that there was an offer of $8 million for 25% of the company, putting the valuation post at $32 million. Make no mistake, the Treasury bill's interest rate is 15% sometimes. Now, if someone is going to bring his money to invest in your company, he's looking for way more than that 15%, given that there's a high risk that his money will not come back. And the rule of thumb is that they're looking for 3 times what they brought in within 5 years. So in our case, they were going to be asking for $24 million within 5 years, or you list and give them a liquidity event or an exit. You have to check very well that this $8 million that you're taking in, you can do business in such a way that the value of the company can cough out $24 million in 5 years.
All right, thank you for staying tuned to Early Exchange as we've been looking at federalism in Nigeria. We talked about different aspects of it. We looked at power sharing and resource allocation, and then we just finished talking about federal character and quota system. Now let's look at financial powers and responsibility as we look at fiscal federalism in Nigeria. Doctor, we have Idahosa Osamaze. I am always tempted to call him doctor because the world wealth of knowledge that this man has, it should even be called modern doctor, because a PhD would not even give you all of this knowledge just like that. So thank you.
It was so annoying with
no, he's honorable already. He's honorable. On this table we decided. It's just...
be a professor. We give him that period.
Okay, so Idausa Osabaze, who is Director, Research and Policy, African Development Studies Center, ADSC, is in the studio once again. He was here earlier this morning, and he's back to look at fiscal federalism with us. So looking at fiscal federalism in Nigeria, let's begin from revenue allocation, because that's where it starts. Only very few states in Nigeria generate enough revenue to meet with their financial obligations. So how's it going for Nigeria in that aspect?
Well, I think it's even important for us as a people to really understand what federalism is. And I think that's the starting point. Because you hear all sorts of debates, whether it's in the academia, on the media, and wherever people gather to sit down to look at the Nigerian Federation, as it were. And you hear some people talk about true federalism, and people talk about fiscal federalism and the rest of it. And I think it's important for us to underscore the fact that federalism is simply a covenant between central and subnational governments. And there's no model anywhere that, of course, tells you how these covenants are entered into. State gets into this agreement based on their peculiarities. So when you look at the federations all across the globe, you'll find that there is no one federal arrangement that is the same. So every federation is different because the peculiarities and the uniqueness of the foundation for such coming together is also different. And I think these are the real issues and the foundational problem that we will need to look at, especially when we deal with the Federation of Nigeria. That's very important. And if you look at our history from 1922, when the elective principle was introduced by Clifford Constitution, and then, of course, we have two protectorates, one in the south and one in the north, governed differently. This was already the bedrock for the Nigerian Federation until we got to 1946, when Arthur Richards decided in 1946 to see how we can split Nigeria into three different regions: the north, the east, and the west. But I didn't know why Richard didn't use the compass to make it 4 regions, which have been the north, the east, and the south, which of course is known to geography. But we had this arrangement of having to put Nigeria in this area. And of course, Richards, by his constitution, set up the Philipson Commission to look at how the revenue that was accruable to the federal government or generated was going to be shared by the federation. Then they came up with a formula of 46 to the north, 30 to the west, and 24% was given to the southeast, the eastern part of the federation. So that was what was known before independence. And so we followed this pattern up to the point we had independence, and we have a truly working federation beginning from 1954, Letito's constitution, that gave us that arrangement of this proper sharing in terms of power allocated to the states and to the center. Now, when you look at all successive constitutions of Nigeria from 1960 to date, of course, the formulas on how these things are shared, they're out there as we speak. For example, if you look at the totally collectible revenue to the federation account, and it is shared on a percentage of 52.6% to the central, we have 26% to the states and 20% to the local government. Now, when you put that together, you find that the federation actually take 52%, and you have 46% to the states, and then 13% derivative to oil-bearing communities where this is resourced. Now, this is the pattern which we know as at today. But the question that many people are not really asking is that if you have a revenue formula that gives, for example, 52 to the center and 46 to the state, minus the 13% derivation, which is also given to the state, people only look and want to hold the federal government accountable, and nobody is looking at the states accountable. Now, in that same Finance Act, for example, the Finance Act of 2017 also has stated very clearly the area where the federal government can collect taxes, for example, or generate revenue, like capital gain tax, you have corporate tax, company taxes, petroleum profits, and all that comes to the federation. And that is what is shared. But there's also a government of the whole that is collected by the states. Now, which of course is called the IGI. The federal don't have IGI, the state have IGI, plus the 26% they receive from the federation account, which of course is taken from all across the federation. What they do with this is what the real issues are. For example, we also have the issues of VAT, which is also centrally collected by the federal government, but it's also distributed to the state based on contribution of the states. So when I hear, for example, people are talking federal or fiscal federalism, that we don't have a fiscal federalism, it really beats my imagination. And it seems that real people don't really understand what these issues are. That the real issues is not about how resources are allocated. The real issues with us as a people is how these resources so allocated are distributed and expended. And I think the problem with us is the expenditure, really not the allocation.
There's this argument that the center is becoming too powerful. So they need to decentralize, the present federal structure in a way that powers are given to states, to local government. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think it's not the center, really. The question to ask is who actually gives the power to the center that makes it powerful? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Based on our constitution. There is nothing in our constitutions that make the central to be extremely very powerful. Nothing. Take, for example, the federal government cannot wake up one day and alter the constitution. It's not possible. The state has to support. There are some certain things that the federal government cannot do. And we have seen this happen. During the Goodluck Jonathan regime, we saw the Governors Forum take on the president on excess crude account. And they got to the Supreme Court and they won. In the immediate past regime, the immediate past president signed an order 10 that says wire straight from the federation account revenue accruable to the local government straight to them and then straight to the judiciary. The state government challenged it in court and they won. So where's really the power that people talk about that is too much in the center? It is just a function of the kind of people that we are, that we don't really sit down to look at our processes and see how they really work. Take, for example, education on the concurrent list. The federal government intervenes, which is really the purpose of the center. That where you find there are some weaknesses, then you find that the collective strength of the whole will be better than the subnationals, then you take that on. Now, states are given the privilege to run state school. The question you ask yourself, I was looking at the 2024 ranking of universities recently. Only Lagos State University is appearing in the first 15 universities in Nigeria. Where are other state universities? You see, this is the real issues. And the whole idea behind the federation is to see how we can leverage our collective strength to build a nation that is so robust that no part of this unit is actually lacking in anything. And this is where you see the federal institution intervening. When you look at the secondary school structure, you find that the best schools we have today, really, is the unity schools, as against state-run secondary schools. So I think what we really need to do is see how we can task the state to be responsible in the use of its resource. You know, I said here in the studio, I read article one day, and one governor in one of the states was asking that they should bear federal government so that they can tie their road. Can have federal government tie federal road? And yet in the same state, there are no state roads. Majorly, there's only one federal road that is crossing that state, or two. Now, the one that are internal roads that should connect the local governments and the locality and ensure that there's a free movement around, he has not done it, and is begging citizens to appeal to federal government so that they can give him permission to go and tie federal road. You can see the hypocrisy. And this is where the real issues lie for us as a people. And I think this is where we should be speaking to. Because a lot of states are hiding under the umbrella of the federation to be inept and to be very lazy.
Okay, now for citizens to demand accountability, they must know the responsibilities that state governments are supposed to undertake, given the finance that they have opportunity of having access to. So what are the areas of expenditure responsibility assigned to state governments? For instance, you talked about road. We've seen that in states where there are federal roads linking one state to another and the federal road goes bad, it remains that way for a very long time because the state says it is not our responsibility. It is a responsibility of the federal government to handle that. So what are the areas of responsibility for the state so that people can begin to demand accountability from their state governments?
Yeah, it's also well defined in the Constitution. You have trunk A roads, which are federal roads. You have trunk B roads, which are state roads. And you have trunk C roads, which are local government roads. So each of the units who is receiving allocation from the federation are supposed to expend on road. Now, that's the point I'm making. If you say the federal road is bad, now, how about the state roads? What are the states of the state roads within that locality? These are the issues we should speak to. That the state has a responsibility to make roads, just as the federal government has a responsibility to make roads. That where roads connect between one and two states, it becomes a federal responsibility. That makes it easier. For state, maybe you have political difference. Take, for example, you want to connect Ondo to Edo, for example, and there's a PDP government in Edo, and there's APC government in Ondo. Now, to reach an agreement or a consensus to make that state, that road, and connect each other may be very difficult. Now, but when it comes from the federation, you don't really care who is having the power in the states. So the federal government can determine we're going to make a federal road that will connect states together. That's the whole idea. But there are state roads which should serve as alternatives. This is a real issue. So if we have alternative roads created by state, a whole lot will happen. We have education. I use my state for example. If there were no UBEC, or the federal government has not taken that chunk of funding primary education, there will be no education in my state. Because all the secondary school in my own local government, you can't boast of 3 or 4 teachers in one secondary school. And I don't know how the children are studying physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, economics with 3 teachers. So this is where the real challenge is. So you have where states have, they are well cut out in the Constitution. And there's no ambiguity about it. So some are in the exclusive list, some are in the concurrently, some are on the residual list. The things that government can do, where they can generate revenue. Who, for example, says that state can't make money? Is there any law in Nigeria that states that states cannot get into investment, for example? and generate revenue. Let's even look at one area that people talk about, which is, of course, the federal ownership of the minerals underground. Is there any law that forbids the state from investing in those things, even if it is owned by government, and make profit for itself? See, this is the issue. And what we have seen really is the fact that over the years, we have not been able to evolve politically to have a good political culture where people are both accountable and responsible. So what you have is that you have this godfatherism kind of politics, which has actually been the real nightmare for our development. So when you have president at the center, every state government becomes his house help or errand boys, and they are following him up all about, and they abandon their own state governors and running to Abuja every day. Now, same happen at the state level. The local government that should be concerned about how to develop local markets so that they can collect more rates and stimulate economic activities within those terrains become the errand boys of their state governor. So this is a problem. So they are not accountable and they are not responsible. And so everybody is saying twale to the man who is above you, and therefore we cannot really focus on development issues. This is where the problems are. That people understand that if you go to America, you have mayors and they do their work in their place, and you have state governors in the state and they are focusing on building the state. You have federal government who is also overseeing his own spheres. Now this is the way it is done everywhere. And I want to ask anybody, another area that is spoken to is the issue of security. That we would have had secure places if we have state policing. Now, since 1999, every state governor in Nigeria takes security votes. For what? If they don't have control over security, what are they doing with the security votes, which they take annually from budget that are not auditable and are not budgetable? So we sit down here and we just think and say, oh, yeah, it's because federal government is the one who owns the police. What if federal government is the one controlling police and the state don't have control over the police? What are they doing with the security votes that they take from their people on an annual basis? These are questions that we should be asking. And this is where, for me, the real issue is that the people must understand they should not be concerned really who govern Abuja. We should be more concerned about those who govern us at the state government and at the local government. And we're having a situation today where you have the local government chairmen who are in the interior actually go there on a monthly basis to go and share the money and come back to the cities. These are realities we live with today. So it's not about revenue really. For me, it's how we distribute what comes to us that is the problem.
All right, let's look at the issue of VAT, which is value-added tax. In recent times, there's this power tussling between some states and the federal agency, which is the Federal Inland Revenue, that whose responsibility should it be? Some states, like Lagos State, thinking, okay, VAT should be collected by Lagos State government, why, other states too should be empowered to do that, which talked about the issue of power, control, and the mechanism to ensure that there's equity and fairness. Now, talk to us, what can be done, especially in the area of value-added tax, the tussling going on between the federal and the state, which comes to ownership and control.
There's really no need for tussle, and I think this has been settled by the Supreme Court. Wike went to Supreme Court to determine this. You see, and I think again it's a misconception. The federal government only collects VAT on behalf of the states, and the only thing that gets off the VAT is the cost of collection. The sharing is done based on contribution. So I don't think that should be a problem. So which means there are proper records. And this is also possible so that, of course, you don't have multiple VATing systems. That you pay VAT for one good here in Lagos, you pay it for Edo State, you pay for other states. So you harmonize it. All the value addition is collected by the government. And what is done is that government know where this thing should come to. FRS no understand this, where of course this resource is coming from. And so on the basis of contribution, the VAT is shared between states. You see, one of the issues that was raised in the last time, I said, oh, take for example, in the north where because of Sharia, beers are not allowed. And they say, oh, so why do you take money from the south who drink beer and go and use it to develop the north? But I don't think that's really an argument that's sustainable, because the real truth of the matter is that the collection of VAT is shared based on contributions from state. And that's why you see, over the last years, because there's a lot of more activities in Lagos, they get more from value addition than any other state of the Federation. So it's really not as if they are sharing it on a quality basis. It is also shared on the basis of contribution.
Okay, talking about revenue sharing, let's look at the derivation principle and the call for the share of resources from, share of revenue from resources in other states. Mining, for instance, not every state is having mining activity ongoing. We just have a few states in the northern part of the country having mining activities going on. But for a long time, the derivation principle has been in effect, sharing revenue from oil, which is gotten from the southern part of the country. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think we also must understand that there's an agency of government, federal government, that's also licensing people who are doing mining. And therefore, there are revenue that are accruable to the federation account from mining, not just oil. It may not be as substantial as the one that is coming from oil, but at least there's some of it that comes into the federation account. And this is what is shared, 52%, 26%, 20%. You get it. So it's not as if that, oh, it's only the revenue is coming only from this place. There are other people who are contributing to the federation account. Agriculture is contributing, and it's coming from both sides. And we all share it, the percentage that is given. Now, and then, of course, based on the formula that is given. And I think what government has done over time was to see how to actually mitigate the effect of exploration of oil and gas, especially in the oil-bearing communities, to see how we reduce the effect on the communities that, of course, the 13% derivation was put in place. And aside the 13% derivation, you're also saying that government also has set up a special commission, NDDC, and now you're having the Ministry of Niger Delta, which also draw from the budget of the Federation to fund what is going on in those areas. And that's why I'm saying that when people talk about you need a new law, I have not seen anything really tangibly wrong with the current rules we practice. The only thing that is wrong is the people that are running it. And I think this is where we really need to focus. It's not about writing a new constitution or giving more power to somebody who is already irresponsible. This is the issue. We have seen where states governors who cannot even build a bridge in their states. You know, recently, we had this conversation during the electioneering, and the governor of Rivers State called out other governors of the Niger Delta states and said, thank Buhari who gave us our allocation of 13% derivation that was withheld for a very long time by federal government. And it is my own I'm using to build all the bridges in Rivers State. Come and tell us where you have spent your own. You know, that conversation had died. And some people said they have not collected their own. And some people say they have collected their own. They are trying to invest it. We have not seen where those investments are. So this is the real question that we need to deal with, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not really about revenue sharing. The question is, the one that you have received, what have you done with it? We can't forget in a hurry the Bayelsa State case, which was celebrated during the Obasanjo regime. Delta State. So the looting is happening even at the states, and nobody really pay attention to it because we are thinking, and because again, like they said, if you want to hide anything from a Nigerian, put it in the book, so they will not read it and they can't see it. So this is where we have a problem. People really need to go and read those laws and constitutions and see how it actually is depriving state. You see, people have this bandwagon effect that you have one lawyer come to a media house and is speaking in all grammatical law, looking at technicalities of language in the constitution. I don't think that's our problem. Our problem is that let's look at the substance itself and see in the substance what is really making the state not to develop. Is it because that the money they are not coming to them? That's not the issue. We're even talking about investment in this critical infrastructure. How many of the states will be able, states that cannot fund primary education, are they the one that will be able to invest in critical mineral resources that will develop it? This is where we have issues. And I think this is where we should be speaking to our people. We need people who are politically creative to find solution to their problem. But the real big issue is the issue of corruption at the subnational level, which is the real bane of our federalism. You see, we said 20% is allocated to the local government. It comes via the states. And the state governors become emperors and determine what goes to the local government, which is unconstitutional. They are actually supposed to be a warehouse or a channel through which this resource come to the local government. But we are hearing and reading in the news how states are muzzling the local government chairman because they single-handedly put them into office and therefore determine how resources within that level of government is expended. So this is the real problem, and this is where we need to speak to the responsible use of power by those who are politicians.
You were almost addressing my next question, which is, when it comes to the distribution of financial resources and the respected responsibilities, it appears the local government is the victim. You have the federal government, if I may use this narrative, the big brother who knows how to take care of himself. Then the junior brother, which is the state, has a way out, a mechanism to take care of itself. But the local government is at the center, is the victim now. How can the local government be rescued from this web?
Well,
given the autonomy, and which I'm not too sure if any chairman has tested that in recent times.
Yeah, but this is where the real issues really lie. If I'm a local government chairman today, I will take on my state governor over my resources. I will test it in the court.
Don't you think the risk is more than the outcome?
What risk? There's no risk. No inherent risk. Somebody just need to test this thing in the law courts. If the state courts makes it impossible, get to the Supreme Court for interpretation. So if, of course, the constitution guarantee that I get SY amount and somebody is sitting at it at the state level, I will take the man on. State governors are taking on federal government. No heaven has fallen. And if local government will afford to take on state government, heaven will not fall. You see, this is where the problem really lies. You see state governor having too much influence in determining who become the people who operate at the party structures up to the ward level. The governor is interested who is the party chairman at the ward level. He's interested in who become the councillor and who become the chairman. So you see, these appendages is what is affecting the practice of federalism in Nigeria. So if a local government decide, for example, to think differently from the governor, then of course they mobilize the councillor to impeach him, because the councillor are loyal to them. Now, this is where the real issues are. Now, when we become real democratic, where there's no one man who is at the center determining who become what within the state, all these issues that we are talking about will not be there. So real local governments are not victims, except that they have made themselves so. And I think they can also liberate themselves by properly educating their own constituents and citizens and mobilizing them against the regime. It's possible when they themselves are coming to equity with clean hands.
Okay, we'll take it up from there after this break. To stay tuned. Many thanks for staying tuned to Early Exchange. Federalism in Nigeria is the focus today, and it's really been intense as Somaze has been looking at fiscal federalism. Like Femi would say, it's getting bigger and it's getting better. I want to add, it's getting hotter.
Yeah.
All right, so from where we left off before the break, it also was talking about local government taking up state government legally, where what is due them is being held back by the state government. So he also mentioned coming to equity with clean hands. Those who must demand equity must come to equity with clean hands. So there are two sides to this. At the state level, you talked about the state governors muzzling the local government. We'll find a situation where a state governor becomes party leader. How did we get to that part? And how do we handle it? And on the side of equity, when state governors are called out, they in turn call out the local government, asking them what they've done with funds allocated to them.
Yeah, I think the issue you have spoken to, that's one aspect that as a people we have also not sat down to actually look. Because in Nigeria, for example, we don't have a democratic culture. You see, when people talk about democracy, they just reduce it to, periodic elections. Democracy is not about periodic elections. Democracy is a freedom of choice that's given to the people. That's why Abraham Lincoln defined it as the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. That's what democracy is. Now, you see a situation where the state governors, by virtue of being the accounting officer of the state, has the knife and the yam. And all they do is use the power of the wealth of the state to threaten everybody. That's what you see. But when you go to other civilized climes, you don't depend on the governor to fund your party. Contributions are done by party members. You can imagine that APC is telling us that they have over 46 million people who are registered members of APC, card-carrying member. The question is, how much do they contribute to the party? And so you allow, because like you say, he who paid the piper dictates the tune. So even if the state governor is actually not using his money, really, he's actually using the state money to fund the political party. And this is where they have lost their autonomy. If the party is generating their revenue by members' contribution, what you will see is that the party will have the wherewithal to actually stand against whoever the governor is. And this is where we need to develop our party culture, such that we are not just having a party that people just come, like the Babangida kind of arrangement, free entry, free exit. No. Political party is like a funnel to sift opinions. That's why you see them. You have various opinion groups, you have pressure group, people with similar interests coming together and banding themselves together into an ideological camp to determine what kind of an arrangement they want. So nobody hijacks it because everybody is a stakeholder. But what we have found in Nigerian political parties is that it is funded by whoever is in power. And that is why automatically the leadership of the party is willed to either the president, the governor, or local government chairman at whichever level it operates. Because you are looking for the money from the federation account to fund your party. That's illegal. It's immoral. But party are supposed to be funded by its members who share common ideology, who believe in a common cause that they want to pursue. Now, once you have these stakeholders coming together to fund their operations, it will be difficult for one man to hijack it. This is where the problem lies. So I think that we need to reinvent our democratic understanding. That is not just about periodic election every 4 years. It is much more than that. It is that the party having autonomy to determine who represents them. You imagine, for example, even in the Allen guidelines, it's stated that no person wins election. Election is won by political party. And if you remember the celebrated case of Wike and Celestine in Port Harcourt, that you see that, not Wike, I mean Amechi, not me Amechi. Because the winner of the election is not the governor. The winner of the election is the political party. So which means that the political party is actually more important in terms of power than the governor. Now, if you also look at our constitutional arrangement, there's also a provision for a recall. In other words, we can recall representative. The party can call them off. So, because a party has lost its value, so you find one man who becomes very wealthy, he's bankrolling the activities and the operation of the political party, and then of course he's the one who called the shots. So this is what needs to change. We need a naturally evolved political parties and association where people of like minds come together and they sit around their table and determine how they want things to be run. And when the governor is misbehaving, they can call him to order. But you see, what happens today is that politicians are looking for governor to take money from him, and they are begging him to pay school fees for them. They are begging him to give them contract. Now the party is weak, and they cannot really look at the governor in the face to say, what you are doing is wrong. This is not our manifesto. We don't want you to do this. Therefore, we have to impeach you. So I think that we need a good party culture where people are responsible enough to understand the value that they are bringing to the table and not allow one man who is a money bag to drive everybody in the wrong direction.
Okay, quickly, speak to equity on the side of the local governments.
It depends on what you call equity. Here is the Constitution guarantee what each person will do. Take, for example, tenement rates by Constitution belongs to the local government. So they also have constitutionally guaranteed right to generate revenue internally, just like the states are doing. But the question is, what do they do? It's not as if the personnel of the local governments are not collecting these rates. But the question is the rate getting into the coffers of the local government? Because when you go around, for example, in Lagos here, you see the operatives of local governments who are collecting rates. It's even worse of here now. You see, you go to places, you see people with all manners of bikes are driving, they are stopping them, collecting taxes from them, no receipted. If you go drive around the Ikorodu road now, you see some boys who are running up and down and they are marking every vehicle that passes and giving them number. Who are they? This is the issue. This is where we're talking about equity. So a lot is taken, but does not get into the commonwealth that belongs to everybody.
I like your narrative. I'm waiting for a day a local government chairman will take up the governor of a state, and which
I think I should be the first person to do that.
Oh, that would be interesting.
I am praying that my people will vote for me. That's why if they do vote for me, I will take on the governor and I will take on the president.
Don't worry.
And I will show that it is possible.
We don't want you at the local level because we're already calling you honorable, so we want you at that top level.
No, even if that happens, we will be glad to report it. So for people to know that you're setting the narrative. Idauza, thank you so much for your submission on the Exchange this morning.
All my pleasure to be here always.
Blessing?
Yes, it's been a wonderful show today looking at federalism in Nigeria. We hope we get it right and so that the country can move forward and everyone will enjoy the gains that come from it. I am Blessing AHA. Business Insight comes up at 10 a.m. to join us for another edition of El Exchange tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time. And Femi.
I'm Femi Ayodele. Bye for now. Don't forget you can do a catch-up on our YouTube channel and social media platform.